Well, hello everybody. Here we are on a Tuesday night, 2 days before the Thanksgiving Day holiday. Welcome to the Joe and Joe Weather Show, and the Joe and Joe Weather Show is brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware, 1226 North Wellwood Avenue, just north of the Southern State Parkway in West Babylon, New York. Long Island's largest rock salt provider and the best prices in town, by the way. 631-756-1125. Omni True Value serves Long Island and much of the tri state area with rock salt, along with all sorts of melting products that you might need to get you through winter storms this coming winter. And winter will be here very soon. So get in touch with Omni, 631-756-1125 or omnitruevalue.com. I noticed today, Mr. Rayo, if you just bear with me 1 second. Okay, it's my screen's being evil. Here we go. Now the third time will be the charm. No, third time's not the charm. I gotta try this a different way. There we go. And yay! I usually work with two monitors, so everything's a bit more seamless. But right now I'm shy one monitor, so things are, how shall we say, it's a little slower on my part. So anyhow, noticing today, Mr. Rayo, that we are seeing models coming around to this idea of a change in the pattern overall as we head into December, and I think it's going to start off with what looks like a pretty hefty sized storm that's going to try to run up the Appalachians, and that's going to be for later Sunday night and Monday, and followed by some colder air. In the meantime, uh, it's kind of a wash, rinse, repeat here with regards to what's going to happen later Wednesday night and Thursday. It sort of looks like what happened Saturday into Monday, that whole process where we had the cold high to the north, and then the onshore flow sets in for tomorrow, which you could compare it to Sunday, and then we get some showers or a period of rain Sunday night and Wednesday night into Thursday morning.
It looks like, Joe, that Thanksgiving overall, albeit wet, especially early in the day, Thanksgiving looks to be rather mild. We may be pushing 60 degrees in many spots during the course of the day on Thanksgiving, on Turkey Day. And yes, looking longer range, both, I was impressed by the fact that the ensembles for both the GFS and the European are both targeting Sunday night with a very potent storm here in the mid-Atlantic and Northeast. So it looks like we're going to finish out the holiday weekend on a more than just a wet note. In fact, some of that colder air trying to push on through from the Great Lakes into western New York and western Pennsylvania, that could spell a significant snowstorm for that part of the country to finish out the holiday weekend, Sunday night into early Monday.
By the way, just kind of curious, what was your low temperature at your house this morning?
Um, what was the low? 37 degrees.
Well, I just to let you know, this morning in Blairsville, Georgia, where I am, uh, a couple of thousand feet above sea level, everything was white this morning. It
And
almost looked
frosty.
like there was a coating of snow. 28 was the low this
Wow.
morning. It was
Wow.
cold, and it was pretty breezy all day long too. We had sunshine and hardly a cloud in the sky. Beautiful, another beautiful day here. But boy, was it cold this morning. I was surprised at how cold it gets up here, and it does get cold.
There's going to be one day when you get a phone call from your daughter, and she says something to the effect like, "Guess what? We got snow." And meanwhile, we up here, probably on the other side of the storm or the other side of the front, probably will get rain.
Listen, stranger things have happened.
Yes.
Meanwhile, on to the satellite loop tonight. By the way, Joe Rayo, as always, is monitoring the chat board. So if you have interesting questions and comments, or even if they're not that interesting, please post them and we will address them as best we can. Uh, you can do that by becoming part of the conversation. Just subscribe to the YouTube channel with your Gmail account, and you're all set to go. Clouds starting to roll in, some high clouds. This system looks like it's actually peaking. I'm kind of confused because I noticed that if you follow the GFS along, the system looks like it's peaking out now, and then when it reaches the coast, it it looks like it's weakening, and yet that model enhances the rain again once it passes just offshore, so that Long Island and southern New England get into maybe a brief period of heavy downpours. Probably not to the extent of what happens on Monday morning, but the NAMs got much less with this. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what to believe at this point. I mean, it looks to me like this should probably weaken as it moves eastward.
Yes, I do. I think that initially the warm front associated with this line looks like it's going to just graze areas north and west with a little bit of precipitation, maybe. But the main thrust is going to come our way with the approaching cold front. That will be unfortunately for Thursday, and that looks like it's going to be bringing again the first half of the day. Thursday looks rather wet, and then as we move into the afternoon hours, as the front begins to pass on by, things will begin to diminish. I didn't notice, Joe, unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to really go over a lot of the models today, but it is interesting because usually when we get into a pattern of wet weather or when we talk about significant precipitation, the NAM is the model that usually is all over the place in terms of potential heavy, rain or snow amounts or whatever. So it's interesting that you say that the NAM is not quite in
Yeah, I mean,
that
I'll bring it
in that
up.
zone.
Might as well bring it up now. Excuse me. Uh, okay, so here's the this is the 18Z, which I haven't looked at. The 12Z I saw. The 18Z I didn't see. Maybe the 18Z adjusted a little bit. But let me roll it back. Yeah, so your warm front is set. Your high tonight, of course, goes up into is up into Maine. So already the winds are coming around to the east, and then eventually goes southeast and south. Nothing especially strong. Little area of light snow up through northern New York and northern Vermont, northern New Hampshire into Maine. Shouldn't amount to too much there. And there's your low, somewhere just southeast of St. Louis tomorrow afternoon. Tomorrow night, showers by 9 or 10 o'clock covering Pennsylvania and just north of you. Yeah, I mean, you kind of look at this. The low winds up going over Lake Erie. It loses its definition. There's some patchy showers around into Thursday morning, and then by even a couple of lingering showers on the coast Thursday afternoon, but nothing especially heavy. And then it moves out. And then I look at the GFS, where the GFS um, which is loading now. So just be paying. Sorry for the slow loads here. The GFS had a little bit has a little just a little bit more in the way of precip. Then it really kind of enhances it a bit again, just as it moves offshore. You got a little patch of heavy rain over southern New Jersey and over Long Island Thursday morning, and then over southeastern New England. Then also a little batch of leftover rain for some reason and how it sees the radar from the Hudson Valley down over New Jersey at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and then by 7 o'clock it's long gone. So I may be just being a little picky here. And then looking on Friday, while we have the GFS up here, uh, there's a little bit of precip that starts to develop down in Louisiana and Texas, and that's going to be part of this whole complex that sets up for early next week. But other than that, it is Friday morning. There's hardly anything going on weather-wise. It's high pressure on both sides of the Rockies in control. And even later in the day, the rain across the Gulf states expands, but the rest of the country's dry. So Friday, what we used to call the big shopping day, this year I think things are different because I know a lot of folks have started their shopping a lot earlier
And don't
online.
forget Monday. Monday is supposed to be Cyber Monday, if I'm correct,
I
right?
think through this whole pandemic, every day has been Cyber
It's
Monday.
going to be a Cyber Monday. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, uh, we'll come back to this. But at least for this first weather system, I'm not really, you know, I'm not really overly enthused by what's showing up. And on the surface map this evening, which is now loading to the 21Z map. We've got, well, the warm front's not even set up yet. They have this analyzed, this weakening, dying front, Joe, just north of you, northern Connecticut over to Boston. There's another high, new high that's in southeastern Canada with some chilly air. I guess some of that feeds down tonight, bleeds down tonight while it can, and the high goes into Maine. And then you've got your low in southwest Iowa with a warm front that extends from there across northern Illinois into western and northwestern Indiana. 40s to the north, 60s to the 50s and 60s to the south. We were in the 60s only got to about 60 here today. But places down in South Georgia made it to the upper 60s and low 70s, and much to the Carolinas at 4 o'clock this afternoon in the 50s. Virginia all in the 40s, and in the 40s for highs across much of eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England. But yeah, again, you look at this. When you look at a surface map and you see 3 or 4 lows being analyzed when with regards to the context of one system, you're probably not dealing with anything that's overly strong here.
And you're talking about the similarities between what's coming our way in the next few days and what we just went through over the weekend into the start of this week on Monday. I remember waking up Monday morning at around 4 a.m. and looking at my little readout on the my weather station that's out, out in the back, and I had my eyes were blinking. It was 4 a.m. on Monday, and it was already 57 degrees.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that we may have another punch of unseasonable warmth to greet us, along with the rain, probably first thing on Thanksgiving morning, even up here.
Yeah. WPC on their latest forecast. Now, assuming that we don't get much, let's say that whatever happens on Wednesday night into Thursday should be on the plus or minus a couple of hundredths of a quarter of an inch. Are you okay with that number?
Yeah, I think that's probably going to be the case.
Right.
There are going to be now. My question to you is, what about convection? Do you think there'll be any lightning and thunder?
Well,
Or
I wondered about that. What happened with Sunday night and Monday, and it turned out the answer was yes. I'm thinking maybe the GFS is hinting with the possibility of a little convection when it enhances some of that precip Thursday morning right along the immediate coast. So I guess I can't completely rule it out. Given the model is a bit more bullish than the others, I don't know that if I would mention it, but if it happens, I wouldn't be surprised.
yeah, and what's Thanksgiving without a couple of peals of thunder or a flash of lightning? Do you have any idea what they're doing at Harrow Square for Thursday? Is there going
Yeah,
to be any
yeah.
sort
Hold
of
on, hang on a second. Yes, in fact, what they are doing is pretty interesting. They I think they have already blown up the balloons. Okay, and those balloons are going to be, believe it or not, they are going to be held by robots. They're going to have robots bringing the balloons down Broadway.
that'll be interesting.
Yeah, I
Because
mean
I remember all those years.
that's almost going to be as uh, that's probably going to get almost as much as attention as the balloons themselves.
Probably, yeah, yeah. But I heard they were confining this to like one block. Is
Yeah,
that
I
what I was?
guess that, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how they're that part. I don't know how they're doing. Yeah, I think they're keeping it like right around Macy's.
Well, we'll see. I'm sure we're all going to be watching on
Thursday.
Thursday morning. Yeah, Thanksgiving this year comes on a Thursday.
Yes. It's
Um,
funny how it works out that way. WPC,
the,
by the way, I asked about that precip amount because WPC's got a splotch of 2 to 3 inches over Connecticut and back into uh, just about touching you and me. So a fairly large area of rain. So most of this, the vast majority of this, is for Sunday night and Monday. And also, while all this is going on, we should note that the rains coming out of the Gulf, out of the Gulf and Gulf states with the low that's developing is also going to produce a substantial amount of rainfall from southeastern Texas, all the way into Alabama, and eventually even to me in North Georgia, with rainfall amounts in some areas exceeding 5 inches. So this is going to be pretty sizable in terms of rain there, and also some rain over the next 7 days in the Pacific Northwest, reaching down into northernmost California, but it's mainly confined to the coastal areas. And then it gets really heavy again in southwest Canada, where everything seems to be going these days as far as rain is concerned. So just back to the GFS, and then we'll go on to the next storm system. The moisture in the Gulf, of course, gathers. We're still quiet through most of the country, but finally, low pressure is in southern Louisiana Sunday morning. And Joe, you got another low that's north of International Falls. So there's northern energy here that is getting involved. And you wind up now on this run, on the late afternoon run, it kind of matches up with the European, which takes the low west of the Appalachians. And as opposed to the day run GFS, which took it just east of the Appalachians, it had a 973 low, I think near Binghamton or something by late Monday. This one has an 82 low near Cleveland, with some heavy snows back through Michigan almost to about Chicago. And the upper feature is very dynamic. It just kind of sits there and rotates around for a couple of days. It just makes the forecast maybe a little more complicated overall over the first part of next week. But the rain certainly shoots right up the coast here. You see it gets really some bands of heavy rains Monday morning from Virginia to about New York City, and then it clobbers northern New Jersey, southern New England, Long Island, the lower and middle and upper Hudson Valley with heavy rain, and then on up, rain all the way up into northern New England. The up This is what I was kind of referring to yesterday. I'm going to bring up the upper air here, and hold on. Sorry, just having again when you're working with one monitor, it's a
Technology,
little
Joe,
tough.
technology.
No, it's one monitor is the issue. But we mentioned yesterday how we have you, and you see it here, folks. You got these two phases here, the northern and southern stream, and one of the things that was a possibility that everything would wind up being deeper and left. In other words, stronger and further west. I guess that's another way of saying it. And let me make my line just a little bit thicker here. There we go. There's your southern stream system, and then you got your northern stream shortwave that's swinging around. And when we go through the day on Sunday and into Sunday night and Monday, those two streams phase together. And on this particular run, Joe, the northern feature just cuts off and drops down and just swallows it up. And you've got this mega cutoff low that is sitting in southern Ohio. If I can, it's so dark I can't even see it. But big cutoff low there in Ohio, West Virginia, wrapped up one. Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10 contours close. This is a really wrapped up animal here. Somebody's going to get
And
nailed
it
with.
shows up. I'm sorry to interrupt, but it shows up if you go on the climate section of Tropical Tidbits,
Mhm.
and you go to that first week of December. You can actually see this on the climate as like a circular area of falling pressures. So it shows up even there over a span as a flattened out over a span of I guess a week. Week.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive that it would catch something like that. I'm
So
trying to
I
get
think
I'm trying to get a better view of this upper air. Let me see if I go to the wider region. Maybe it gives me the option. There's an option here where I can take a different um, region. Let's try it on this one. And well, we definitely. Oh, here it is. I always like to look at this every once in a while. I always forget to look at this, but I like the way this map looks. Yeah, this is just a really wrapped up upper low. Somebody's going to get clobbered with some. There's a five. It's a 519 upper low, Joe. That's very deep. Sitting there in Ohio, someone underneath that upper low is going to get clobbered with some heavy wet snow. In my opinion.
No, no question. If this all pans out, it's a very very anomalous situation, even for early December,
Yeah,
and it'll be. I noticed that on the surface maps around the 9th or 10th of December, if you want to go that far out, they
sure.
do have a very they do have a very robust system crossing through the Ohio Valley, and looks like it's like moving in our direction. So
You
I,
know,
I don't know whether or not
look
I don't know
look
whether or not we're going to get anything out of that, but
look at. I just moved it to Wednesday of next week, and while the first upper low lifts up, there's another arm that comes around that's actually fairly well developed over Lake Michigan. The model doesn't really do this run didn't really do anything with that, but that whole trough just swings around and moves on through here toward the end of the week. It's probably going to bring in a shot of colder, of cold air behind it. You'll get colder when the first low goes by, and then you get a second shot of reinforcement. But just looking at the flavor of the overall upper air, this is completely different from anything we saw in the month of November.
it is.
This is really a sharp radical change, and I would just point out that if we go back and looked at some of the longer range models in terms of the average flow, um, I mean, I wouldn't expect it to look like this, but you could look at the average flow and get some idea of whether there's going to be some sort of dynamic system someplace. There was no hint of the upper air looking remotely like this, and I guess my point is this is why you have to be really careful when I mean super careful when you're talking about something in a 4 month context. We haven't even already we're going into the month of December, and the longer range forecasts for the beginning of this month are going down the drain, given how dynamic all this looks. And the other thing
Right.
I would say, Joe, too, is the fact that running this through the long range, it's interesting to me how all of a sudden now the southeast ridge is gone, and you've got another deep trough in the eastern states toward the end of next week. So we're talking about the weekend of the 5th and the 6th. A strong northwest flow coming down out of Canada. So it's a much different upper air. And I think that there's enough going on here that that window that we talked about yesterday may come at some point.
And just looking at the temperature probability map from CPC today, taking us from the 2nd to the 9th of December. And with each day, Joe, they keep making it, I mean, not, dramatically colder, but slowly but surely they're making it much colder than the original projections were across the southern and central plains all the way to the eastern seaboard. In fact, let me try something here. We were talking about this before we came on the air. I'm going to try to share my screen and see if this works.
All right, hold on a
Um,
second. Hold on, because I have to do some adjustments here. 1 second. Yes, your screen is up.
Now, can you see that, or
Yeah,
can you see?
everybody should be able to see it. It's WPC's. Uh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean the Climate Prediction Center (CPC), and
Right,
their what is that? The outlook from December 2nd through the 5th
to the 8th,
through the 8th.
to
Okay.
the 8 to 14. But you could see that this whole area. That keep in mind that about a week ago, the entire country was, you know, a blowtorch city. Everything was orange and red,
Mm-hmm.
and there was no sign or no signal whatsoever. And now, take a look. It looks like about half the country is either near or below normal. And the trend is your friend. Well, I think the trend has been for colder and colder conditions as we cross through the first and maybe even into the second week of December.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, I think this is coinciding with the migration. We've been discussing the migration of the polar vortex from Siberia to Greenland, and the stretching of it, the expanding nature of that. And we're seeing changes. And I guess if you're a winter weather lover, you have to regard this as a very positive sign that the changes that are going on in the stratosphere are translating somewhat to what's going on at the surface. Now, it may take a while for that translation to complete. It might take a couple of weeks for the whole change to take place. Oftentimes, in the process of those changes taking, it's during the change that you wind up with some very volatile weather, and I think maybe that's what we're going to be seeing as we move through the weekend and into next week. And now
I
with
just changed I
uh,
just changed over from temperature to precipitation for December 2nd to 8th. And can it get any drier? It looks like 90% of the continental United States, the contiguous United States, is below normal in terms of
right.
precipitation. The only place that's above normal is down over southwest Texas and southern Texas. Elsewhere, most everywhere, supposedly, if this is right, if you take this at face value, we'll have below normal precipitation, which doesn't make any sense
Well, this is
because,
from the
like I said,
set. Right.
if you look at that GFS and you see that closed low over here, you'd say to yourself, "My goodness, there must be a lot of stuff that's flying around over here." And look, dry, bone
Well, no, they
dry.
had now that's the average from December 2nd to the 2nd through the 8th. So we're talking Monday and Tuesdays, the 30th and the 1st. So
Right.
the
That's before. That's
right.
before.
So the event actually is outside is just outside the time frame here.
See now, I just went to the 6 to 10 day outlook
Right.
for the 30th to the 4th. So we're just catching that system on the tail end, and it does show above normal precip along the entire eastern seaboard. But then look what's coming in behind all of that is this broad area of dry weather. So I
Right.
suppose it's going to be turning colder but drier as
Could
we move
be. I
into
mean,
the first
there's
week of December.
nothing that says that you can't do that. It's certainly just because you're cold doesn't necessarily mean that you're dry. By the way, I'm very impressed that you did the screen share. Very
Oh well,
impressed.
thank you,
Yes. Okay, good.
thank you.
It
Well,
makes me feel more confident for future
well,
times.
it worked. It worked. I want to thank all the people on the chat board. I've had over 800 people view
I thought they
the
were going to
snow
tell me.
survey from Central
I
Park.
thought they were going to tell you we had over 800 people tell you how to share a screen on Zoom. Go,
No, no,
I'm sorry. Go
no.
ahead.
I did. No, I did share the. I did a PowerPoint for the snow survey, and I had to do some sharing. So I'm learning, Joe. I'm learning. I'm following in your footsteps.
Yeah, it just takes a little time. But I can see how the GFS actually has it. After this thing gets out of here, it is dry for the rest of. There's another one of these situations later next week where, except for some showers in North Florida with a cold front, the rest of the nation is doing very little. There's a little bit of lake effect happening, and that's it. And it is chilly in the east through much of that time frame. Yeah, and again, this goes back now to yesterday because late next week we were supposed to have this crazy wrapped up upper low in the southern states with snow in Alabama and Mississippi and Tennessee. And guess what? It's not even showing up now on this one. And I think the reason why is that you're seeing all this phasing going on with this first system here. And then the second one that drops down into Michigan and swings to the east. That's basically the model's representing that as just an a polar boundary that moves on through later next week. But there's no room for anything else. That little closed upper low you see in Missouri, that was the big wrapped up 6 or 7 contour upper low for the end of next week. Guess what? It's a weak little system. It's a system that drops southeastward into North Florida and pushes offshore. But uh, I have to say that I guess for snow lovers and cold weather lovers, you can't be discouraged by the changes that are taking place. Here's just a longer range view. Another thing I noticed in the upper air, a couple of things happening. We're seeing pressures rising across the Arctic region, rising across the North Atlantic. Uh, Upper low that's in the Aleutians, pushing a trough down along 160. That's always something you want to see out there. And again, you have a trough out at 160. Usually means you have a trough in the east and the ridge in the west, and that's pretty much what you have at this point. I just arbitrarily pulled up next Sunday. Uh, Going out into the longer range, uh, there is more of a Canadian connection here, particularly on the earlier run today on the 12Z run. I noticed that the connection, though not solid, but when you look at the upper air on the prior run, your flow is coming from the Arctic down into northwest Canada and then into the Great Lakes and middle Mississippi Valley with another trough swinging into the east. It's a much colder look for the eastern part of the United States overall, uh, relatively speaking. We're not talking anything super cold, but look, you got to start from someplace, and I think the models are trending in that particular direction. And the other thing, one last thing I want to bring up is the actions up in the stratosphere, because we have been paying close attention to this, and I've been watching every single run of the GFS to because I really want to be right about the winter. I want everybody forecasting a warmer than normal and a snowless winter to crash and burn with their forecast. So I'm really on top of this, and it continues, Joe, the same thing that we've seen for many days here. I'm going backwards, but that polar vortex from the shores of Siberia migrates to northern Greenland. It also stretches out and spreads out across much of the U.S. and certainly up into Canada. So that is still doing what it's been forecast to do, which is to get dislodged from Siberia and move further south, and that should translate into a colder regime across North America. By the way, Larry Cosgrove posted didn't talk about the polar vortex, but he's he commented today about the models going to this colder look overall, and stormier look, particularly the stormy part, not so much the colder part, but the stormy part as we move into the month of December.
We shall see. I still maintain that we're going to see our one big storm probably in February. People be crying, through January and say, where is it? Where's all the snow? I think we'll get one storm that will make everybody happy in the month of February. So that's my thought. We'll get it'll be like the winter of 2015, 2016, where there hardly was anything except for that one storm on January 22nd and 23rd that dumped 27 and a half inches. I'm not saying we're going to get 27 and a half inches out of one big storm in February, but a storm that will make a lot of you snow lovers happy, or wipe the frown off your face, because it'll be that. I think up until then, it'll be that kind of a winter for a lot of you.
New York Jets fan, 1991. Happy Thanksgiving, Joe and Joe, and hitting super chat. Thank you so much, New York Jets fan. You're having a particularly difficult year at 0 and 10. Now, Lamont says, "I'm sorry, Joe. I know you're positive, but I don't see it. I don't know what you're. Well, I would just say I'm not sure what you're expecting to see. I didn't show. I mean, I'm not sure what you're referring to by saying you don't see it. Or you say everything goes to the west, or misses. That's not the issue. That's not the point. The point is that you have to get the atmosphere to change first. That's all I'm saying. That you're going to a stormy look and a potential and a relatively colder look. Nowhere did I say that any of this is going to amount to anything with regards to something happening in the I-95 corridor. I'm talking in broad generalities here. So just to be clear here, um, the, I think I think I made that point, Joe. Unless unless you
Oh,
disagree.
you made your point. You made your point quite clear. But some people aren't listening on the same wavelength. They're listening with their heart, not with their head.
No, well, he's just saying now he sees every single storm going by to our west, all of them. All right. Well, look, we'll see. If you just said every storm, so I just want you to be careful. Um, he says he predicts cold and dry for days, warm up and rain, then cold and dry for days. Maybe that's what it'll be. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe that's what it will turn out to be. But you just said every storm will be um, uh, go to our west. So I'm gonna
That's
hold
like
you. I'm gonna hold you to that.
that's like in the Honeymooners episode where Alex is telling Ralph, everybody does the mambo now. Everybody does it. Well, I didn't mean it. You said everybody does it. I don't
Yes.
do it. Norton doesn't do it.
Norton doesn't
My
do it,
grandmother never did it.
but Mrs. Manicotti does it.
Mrs. Manicotti. Now I have a question. Do you want to hold Scott Briller, the chairman, sent me a list of Briller Jeopardy questions. Do you want to do them now, or do you want to hold on to them until our next appearance, which may not be
Hold on to them until the next one.
right.
Hold on to them to the next one. I would just like to say, so Joe and I are going to take at least the next 2 days off, and possibly the next three. Uh, we shall see, but definitely tomorrow and definitely Thursday. So that's because we are going to take a break and enjoy our Thanksgiving with whoever we're enjoying it with. I don't want to get anybody in trouble. Uh,
Well, Thanksgiving Thursday is one thing. Tomorrow, hopefully, my wife and I will complete making or converting our home into the Christmas festive spirit outside. We have Mr. Claus, Mr. Claus, Mr. Claus,
right.
and his reindeer and the sleigh on the front lawn, and Frosty the Snowman. And tomorrow, hopefully, we'll be able to put up the rest of the lights, and then we'll be done with this.
Right.
I was gonna get Mrs. Trump involved, but I don't think she's too interested in putting Christmas lights up. So
All right. Well, we'll leave that alone. I went shopping for probably the most important thing that you need to have on Thanksgiving, and that's wine. Uh, I'm in what used to be a dry county here, so I was in Walmart on Sunday, and I wanted to get a bottle of wine, so I took the wine off the shelf, and somebody came up to me and said, "Excuse me, but you can't buy wine on Sundays." So just a few years ago, Union County, which is where I'm in, used to be a dry county.
well, you can have your wine. I do not drink very much in the way of alcohol, and in fact, my wife has already bought just for me a Thanksgiving tradition, which she calls kitty wine, which which is kind of like a carbonated grape beverage or a carbonated champagne type of beverage or whatever, and that's what I will be drinking on Thursday with the turkey and the rest of the Thanksgiving stuff.
By the way, yeah, Lamont says for us to get a big snowstorm, it has to be perfect 100%. Even at 99.9%, it is a fail. I don't know. I think that's a fairly that's a little ridiculous. I understand what you're getting at. Yeah, for a big snowstorm, they all have to be 100% perfect. But I got news for you. That's the case everywhere in the U.S. pretty much, unless you're in the mountains. I'm a little touchy tonight, especially in the mountains of the West. Yeah, I mean it's pretty automatic. Okay, and if you're sitting on the shores of the Great Lakes in most winters, all you have to do is wait for the wind shift, and you can sit in your lawn chair, face the lake, and get hit with all the snow you want. But that's, we're here to forecast. You deal with what the models put in front of you, not in both directions, not pro, not against. We're agnostic when it comes to what the outcome should be. But just you can't sit here and tell me at the end of November that you've already got the whole next 4 months figured out, because no one does, and I don't care.
Interestingly,
That's just
on
how
this
I.
date on this day in 1938, it was Thanksgiving, and on this day in 1938, we had the snowiest Thanksgiving in Central Park. It started in the afternoon, carried over into the next day, Friday. I don't know if they called it Black Friday back then. I don't think they did. But in any case, we had something like 5 inches of snow out of this, and that was on this day into the 25th in
Well,
1938. So
and it's, by the way, Black Friday's hasn't been the biggest shopping day of the year for years now. It used to be, probably, I would say for the last 10 years, it has ceased to be the biggest shopping day. It's actually, uh, I think it's the second Saturday before Christmas. The not the sat the I forgot which one it is. But it's one of the Saturdays before Christmas that is the biggest day. And then one other day on a Saturday that's also bigger than Black Friday.
well, still people these stores they like to run the black. I know one department store that's been running Black Friday sales since September.
Yeah.
So
Who
it's,
was it? Oh, Jason Barry wants to know, are you having any cactus cooler?
I don't know if I still have. My brother-in-law got a whole case of it. I'm not sure if I still have any cans left of Cactus Cooler. I'm not sure about that. Maybe I have one can or two cans left. That's a good question. I'll have to check. I'll have to see. I do see a on the chat board, Joe, Johnny Quest asking, is it true that next month there will be two planets that will be very close to each other? Yes, Johnny, there, we will have Jupiter and Saturn. They're going to make their closest approach to each other in the sky, the closest since the year 1623. They're only going to be like, if you can visualize a full moon in the sky, those two planets will be 2/5 of a moon diameter next to each other, not close enough to join into one single star, but it certainly is going to be the most impressive and most,
Not since 1623.
not since 1623 have they been this
When
close in the sky.
when Charles the First was on the throne.
Was that when he was on the throne?
Yeah, I always remember it's JCCJ. James the First, who was the son of Mary Queen of Scots, because when Elizabeth died, she had no children because she never got married. So her Queen Mary, Queen of Scots, who Elizabeth wound up having to have beheaded, uh, so he got the throne. And then I forgot the lineage for Charles, but it's from the same family, I guess. Charles got the when James died, Charles got the throne, and then there was a little period in there where Oliver Cromwell went around setting people on fire and burning them at the stake for about 10
Oh,
years.
lovely.
And then
Well,
they put back Charles II. I think it was 1660 something. It was Charles II, and then that was followed by James II. And then after that, there was some other war, and they had to draft a new king and a new queen. So they got William and Mary from Orange. They were busy setting up a university, Bill and Mary in Virginia, and then they came rushing back because they needed somebody to be king and queen.
and all of this was triggered by my telling you that this will be the closest approach of two planets in 1623.
Well, it obviously caused an issue with uh, the royal ascension to the throne,
All
the
right.
sequence
Maybe they
of
would have seen
ascension
the
to the
two,
throne.
maybe they would have seen the two planets back in 1623 and looked at it as a sign in the sky.
Could be, could
And,
be. Well,
interesting.
I'm sure they had a royal astronomer.
I'm sure they did.
They
They,
probably
well, they,
did. Yeah,
they probably, is telling the signs in the sky or whatever like that and telling
yeah.
them, oh, the planets are going to, but it's interesting. It hasn't happened in almost 400 years. And if you miss out, it'll be December 21st of next month when the two are going to be closest together. 6 arc minutes will separate the two planets in the sky. If you have a good telescope, this is going to be interesting. If you have a really good telescope, you can aim your telescope at the two planets and see them in the same field of view. You will be able to see Jupiter and its four big satellites, and at the same time, right above it, you'll be able to see Saturn with its rings. It'll be gorgeous. Of course, naturally, it'll be cloudy that night. So if you miss out on December 21st, you have another shot at seeing it, not 400 years from now, but in the year 2080. That's only 60 years down the road. I don't know if you and I are going to be here,
We're booked.
but
I know I'm booked.
any of you who have very young children, they'll have a second chance at this in the year 2080. But
I just breaking news here. Hold on a second. I just got a message from Timothy Veltman on my telephone. See my telephone. Hang on a second. So Jess Harden wants to know when the NAM is going to get on board with the snowstorm in Alabama. Jess,
yeah.
Jess, have a happy Thanksgiving. Okay. Have a happy Thanksgiving. Anthony Orr hit super chat tonight. Thank you very much. And to everybody on the board, on the chat board tonight, and those of you who are here almost every night on a regular basis, from both of us, a very happy and healthy Thanksgiving to you and your families.
And I wish the same. It is a very unusual Thanksgiving this year. Hopefully, next year at this time, we'll be able to have our usual big gatherings together. We will have a real Thanksgiving Day parade. Although, quite frankly, Joe, as far as I'm concerned, when Lauren Green and Betty White stopped doing the Thanksgiving Day parade commentary, that was it for me.
You just gave up. All right. Well, Betty White's still available, you know.
I know she is.
She's still
Maybe
chugging
next
along.
year.
All right. You have a happy Thanksgiving, Mr. Rayo, and Mrs. Rayo, of course, executive producer. And
Hey,
we will, we'll maybe see you on Friday. There's a chance that we won't, but we definitely will not see you tomorrow or Thursday. So have a